I thought I would mention something which was quite funny the other day. We met up with my family, and Finn and I were walking. Finn's my nephew. Everyone actually who listens to the show knows who Finn is. Finn is my 16-year-old nephew, and I love him. I love him dearly. And he was saying, I said I'd been running or something the day before, and he goes, "Oh, how are you?" He did this thing. It was so cute. "How are your hips, knees?" And he basically went through his various body parts.
Just looked at you and went, it could be anything at your age. This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing. So I was going to talk about something. I wonder we should give it a go.
Let's try.
It's a bit weird because there are aspects of this that you know already, but listeners don't. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try and avoid it, sort of pretense. Anyway, one of the things that I remember from many years ago, there's a choreographer called Rosemary Lee, and Rosemary Lee is a remarkable, just fabulous human being. And many years ago, she had this symposium. Maybe it was like 2012, maybe 13. This symposium, and it was about care. And in this symposium, one of the kind of main speakers was a physician whose name is, I think it's Raymond Tallis. One of the things, the only thing I remember that he said was, the gist of it is, every form filled is an opportunity for care lost. Mm. He's talking about
medical forms, the
medical system. Yeah. And so I've had a pretty interesting week a week and a bit, because on Tuesday, so this was just yesterday, I submitted an application to what's called an emergency allocation request to New Zealand's quarantine system, which is called MIQ. Love an acronym. Managed Isolation and Quarantine. And it'll be in the show notes, but MIQ has been one of the reasons New Zealand has, until very recently, remained almost COVID-free. It's a pretty strict quarantine system, so you get a place in it and then spend 2 weeks in a hotel somewhere in New Zealand, and then get tested all the time, and then you're out.
And when you say somewhere in New Zealand, that somewhere can be a long way away from where you're aiming to be in New Zealand, right?
As far as I understand it, this is where I've got a little bit confused in the form filling. My thought or my thinking or the rationale is that you enter into either one of two places, Christchurch or Auckland. Auckland's probably the most likely, it's the biggest city. And then you get bussed or flown as part of a bubble to the area that you're going to end up. And so this is an emergency request, and the reason it's an emergency request is because a couple of weeks ago I found out that my mother has been, as you know, Lee, has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she has weeks/months to live, and it's been pretty hard. But it seemed like I thought it was a good thing to talk about, because there couldn't be anything more midlife than the death of a parent, and here I am having a go.
So we had a conversation about the this scenario, effectively.
We did.
We did it probably.
It was all hypothetical then.
Yeah, it was a couple of probably about 6 weeks ago, I guess. It'll be in the show notes which episode it was that we talked about it. But we were talking about it in relationship to the climate emergency and Simon's your resistance to imagine yourself being able to take another long haul flight in the context of this imagined scenario of needing to be with your mum at the end of her life, and now we're somewhere else, and I wanted to say that out loud, and I wanted to address it explicitly, not in an attempt to call you out and go, so
call me a two-faced prick.
What's it like being a hypocrite?
What's it like when the shit hits the fan for all your values to just go flying out the window?
So now that you've discovered you have no integrity, how do you feel about yourself? Is that harder than not being able to run? So that's not why I said that.
So
it was more that I didn't really want anybody to be listening and going, hang about, record scratch. Didn't he just say?
So here I was thinking I was going to be talking about the difficulty of the death of a parent, and here you are talking about how I'm a complete fraud. Thank you. You really put the F back into friendship, don't you?
Oh no!
Oi, oi, oi.
I know it's something that you, because we have talked about this not while we've been recording, but I know it's something that is. Yeah, just how you square that way of being with this present way of being, and the thing that I'm struck by is that every day that we wake up, we're not the person that we were yesterday, and we
beautiful.
don't, we have a memory of that person, and we probably have a memory of the ideals that person had, but I think they're all pretty much contextual, aren't they?
Yeah, I sent that episode to a friend of mine who lives in Dunedin.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Jim. Jim and I have known each other a long time, and mostly our conversations are about climate change, or as you describe accurately, the climate emergency. And we both, we see eye to eye. And I sent him that episode because I knew it would interest him. I then also told him that the timing was very odd. In fact, if you look at the episode, it says this episode was recorded on. And it's the only episode that says when it was recorded. And the reason was my mum got a bit sick between us recording and then publishing or whatever, dropping. It's hard to say that, take myself seriously, frankly. Although you'll be saying it's hard to take me seriously at all anyway now. And the reason was because it would have been weird for, someone, I guess in my family, to hear me talking about something hypothetical when in fact at that time it wasn't hypothetical, even though it wasn't clear what was going on with Mum. It was just that she was a bit sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so he listened, and he also had this information about my mother, whose name is Gabriel, by the way, Gabriel Ellis. And he said, oh, mate, he goes, I wouldn't worry too much about the flight. He goes, you live an incredibly low footprint. Seems like that's a very small thing in the larger scheme of things. And of course, he's certainly right in terms of kind of industrial scale, industrial level use of fossil fuels. It was really lovely of him in a way, because I think he was trying to reassure me. But at the same time, I think he was squaring up to a particular kind of a moral problem. I think it's a moral problem, or it felt like a moral problem for me. And then a few weeks later, whatever it was, a couple of weeks ago when Mum had this diagnosis, my initial thought was that I wouldn't go. In part because Mum said that she didn't think she said it was okay not to. And that was Mum being a mother, that extraordinary, I guess, concern for the well-being of her children. And then as I thought about it, I was just thinking, I think there's nothing more. I don't have there's very little I want to say to my mother. She and I have said so much over many years, but just the idea of being physically present with her as she dies, as she enters these final stages, this very last phase of her life. I can't think of anything I'd rather do more than to be close to her and to share that time with her. So yeah, and of course this is all so hypothetical in the sense that it's not clear that I will necessarily get into the country through this emergency application request or whatever it is to MIQ.
So we're having this conversation in a strange limbo moment where you don't know what's what's the timescale for you finding out?
So I applied on so it's Wednesday night tonight, 22nd of September. I applied yesterday morning, and apparently I didn't know this, but apparently I should hear within 3 working days.
Mm-hmm.
but you only apply for an emergency or an EAR, allocation request, for if you had planned to travel within 2 weeks.
Right.
And so, say I hear on Friday, I would then book a flight and be gone by Tuesday.
Wow.
And then arrive 2 days later, effectively, or a day later, but then you lose a day. You never get those days back when you fly that far.
Yeah.
And spend 2 weeks in a hotel somewhere. Yeah, so it's a very I couldn't. I mean, maybe there's enough in this story in a way, but I couldn't. It's a pretty odd, as you say, limbo. It's a very strange experience, and partly because I'm thinking it's pretty likely that they'll say no, not because there's any problem with my application, but because there just aren't enough places.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just got stuck behind that. It's pretty likely that they'll say no, because that hadn't occurred to me. I'd assumed it was pretty likely that they'd say yes, because I don't know what counts as an emergency otherwise.
Oh yeah, there's it's this is one of the things. It's one of those hard edges of bureaucracy which don't reflect being human, and yet they have to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Because there have to be lines drawn, and the rationale is to visit someone who is dying, terminally ill, and that they must be dying within 6 months.
Okay.
So you have to provide evidence that is the case, and then of course there'll be all sorts of, you can imagine all sorts of grey areas. I mean, physicians can't make those. They don't know.
No.
They know based on experience, a sort of an approximate thing, but then that's not the way humans are. Some live less time, some live longer. But it's a very, very black and white line in a very grey world. So yeah, I'm in the middle of that.
I don't know how to talk to you about this, Simon. I don't know how to be with you in this conversation. Partly because I think the conversation is a conversation we've had before. So,
yeah.
so
it's slightly false in a way, isn't it?
But it's really not. And I'm trying to sort of ask. I'm trying to ask things rather than just sort of sit with you and be with you in this moment, because I think. What you're offering here is I think it's such a kindness to people. I think the whole thing that I'm hearing right now is a kindness. So I'm thinking about the kindness of your mum saying, it's okay, you don't need to come. I think there's the kindness of you saying, yeah, I really do need to. I think there's also...
It feels like want. It's so interesting. I don't know the difference, but it's like I want to more than need to. I don't know if there's any difference there. But anyway, keep going.
I think that's what kindness is, though, isn't it? It's like wanting to rather than needing to. I think there's also, for me, there's the kindness that will happen about being with your mum as she's dying, because she's going to give you such a gift there about learning how to negotiate those days for yourself later on.
Yeah.
Because it's, we can only rehearse this bit through other people's bodies. We don't get to do it through our own, do we?
Yeah, it's a strange sort of trainer wheel situation.
Oh fuck yeah, yeah. But that's that other bit of kindness, and so I was then yeah. So that's sort of. It does. That's why it doesn't feel false. It doesn't feel like a falsehood when we're having a conversation that is like kind of locked inside of kindness, from my perspective, anyway. And then I'm also becoming aware that we started this podcast in the teeth of a global lockdown, and this is really the first time that COVID-19 has actually properly impacted our lives, hasn't it? I mean,
interesting.
You and me, and I mean that in the sense of. We've heard numerous conversations from. Well, I'm saying we. The we there is
people have been really sick.
Yeah.
Or friends who have been really sick.
This is it. I'm thinking me and Bob have friends who actually, some of whom are still ill with kind of long COVID, and we've got friends who've lost family, and we know people who died of COVID, but all of it has been at least one person remove. So it's kind of been down the corridor from us rather than right with us. And then
it's a very particular part of the pandemic to be affected by as well. It's the machinations of a country that has gone about a very very particular way of responding to it, and by this a desire to stamp it out, which it did for 8 months. It didn't exist, and so it's bumping into a bureaucracy or a set of policy that really I support.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel any ill will
No.
to those policies. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to be sustainable. It seems crazy that on the one hand we're just like living free as birds, and with 30,000 new cases a day and 100 plus people dying every day, and in New Zealand they've got 17 new cases today or 21 new cases. And so the discrepancy there seems bizarre. But that's by and by from my personal experience. I was thinking that long before Mum got sick.
Yeah, and I don't think I was the kind of précis I just did of the last 18 months wasn't based on like, look, we did it right, because
no, I wasn't hearing that. Yeah,
we really didn't. But it's that curious thing that I think it's taken us this long to, God, how lucky to to have a moment where we're in the teeth of something and go, oh, yeah. So that's what happens when you can't get to, or potentially can't get to be with somebody.
It's so interesting because it just hasn't really been on my mind, that aspect. I think this is, I don't know. It's a little bit. I think this is generally my response to policies, which is, okay, well that's what's happening now. I don't like that. I like that. I prefer this, but this is the policy, so it's pretty much out of my control now. I'm just going to get on with. So I it's a little bit like that. I haven't felt like that, but partly also because I'm just grieving.
Yeah,
like I'm just just doing that beautiful, terrifying, uncertain, bursting into tears at the most bizarre moments, and then that wave passing. I mean, it's just beautiful, Lee, but it's hard. And I'd forgotten that grieving happens before something. It's such a I'd forgotten that, and it's such an obvious thing, but it's I just wouldn't wish it away at all, and yet I'd love for Mum to live longer. But at the same time, she's had a rich and difficult and beautiful and fun and mixed up and messy and ordered life. She's a human being, and so if you know what I mean, it's just a life. It's the life of a human, and something there to mourn and celebrate. And I just fuck. I don't know what else there's to say.
I don't think there's much to say. I think trying to reach for platitudes, or try to tie this up, or put a button on it, or have some kind of moment that can have the ding 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 would be crass. I mean, I know I'm going to have to try and do that in an edit at some point. Yeah, I just keep bumping up against kindness, Simon, and that you being able to find the space. I mean, to talk about grieving as beauty, and that's lovely, because I think saying that out loud to people allows us to hear, because my experience of grief isn't beautiful. But my experience of grief is completely different to the grieving that you're talking about, because the grieving that I think I've done, the grieving that doesn't reflect what you're talking about, the notion of beauty, because I think I can imagine when you're talking about there is the grieving of the miscarriages, because they become about They become about something that wasn't, because the thing that you just described about your mum and the way you just enumerated her life, it just sounds so rich, and it sounds so full, and that's, that potential to get beauty from it, and then the beauty from the idea of grief, not beauty from a life, of course. And then I wish I'd not said that. I'm going to cut that out. That's awkward. Yeah, I don't like that.
Why?
It just felt self-serving, Simon. That felt like a really self-serving thing to say, and I don't usually feel that way when I talk about it. It felt really. I've got really hot. It felt really dishonest, and even though it's a true story, it felt really dishonest and disingenuous, and like I was trying to have skin in the fight of the conversation about loss, and that felt really weird.
I see.
That's
I think that's whether you were trying or not, I think it's a very human thing to do, isn't it? It's interesting you use the metaphor of skin in the fight or skin in the game, given what we've just been talking about. But I don't know. I think in a way that a lot of those things depend on the nature of a relationship. I think, because I think we have a pretty strong friendship, which has been forged in the crucible of podcasting.
That famous place where one battles and becomes a man.
Yes, I think it's Mordor, just south of Mordor is Podcastlandia. Yeah, I think in a way I don't feel that. I think it would be. I think we're trying to figure something out. And understand it for each other, and I feel supported by you and loved by you. It would be very hard for me to misread that or to go, "Hey, what are you talking about?"
I think you occupy a place of generosity in the way you listen to people, though, Simon. You
not all the time, just to be clear.
Well, no, because
just in case Lil's listening,
and also all those people who've slighted you because they've said something a little.
Well remembered.
See, I do listen. I pay attention. No.
Yes, exactly.
No, but I think.
So I keep a spreadsheet. People who have slighted me, and they, there's a ladder. I move them up and down.
Okay. I'm so confused. I've never put a ladder in a spreadsheet. I am so confused right now, but I can't really work Excel. I discovered that today when I was just trying to reduce the number of modules that I was looking at. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, I can't do this. I'm just going to get a highlighter pen and print it out and realise that that's not how Excel works. I'll have to take that off my CV. Knows how to work Excel.
I have a 1 to 5 scale for my aptitude with software on my CV.
Do you? I love that.
Ones that are one is something which I've
downloaded.
It's basically a Kinsey scale for my ability with software. Super gay with Final Cut Pro, very heterosexual when it comes to Microsoft Word, etc.
I really love that you have just decided that super gay would be the thing that would suggest capability and competency. This heteronormative bullshit, just like, kick that motherfucker to the curb.
Yeah, super gay meant really good, expert.
Yeah, which is so not 2006, because...
It's also so not what I would have said as a 15-year-old, that's for sure.
I'm super gay at that software. What do you mean? I mean, I'm excellent.
Really good at it.
Yeah.
The freedom and joy of midlife, eh?
Well, yeah, because you just can stop giving. Well, not totally stop giving a shit, because I did.
Dead Rats Roger about that stuff.
Flying. Did you say fire truck?
Yeah.
I was going to go with a flying fisherman's fuck.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that.
So alliterative, isn't it? I'm so illiterate, but that is so alliterative.
One of the worst things about these conversations is that I've taken to basically having an ear out for possible show titles the entire conversation. So I've got a certain amount of CPU dedicated to possible show titles.
And you'll be pleased to know I've got little bits of my brain that's going, going to cut that out.
Edit.
Going to get that out. Cut that out. If I just pull that to there and that to there, that will make a sentence.
The joys of nonlinear editing in real time as one is, yes.